If you have a bird feeder in your yard, you've probably had squirrels try to eat from it. Squirrels are smart, bold, and relentless when it comes to searching for food and will go to great lengths to get what they want. As someone who's been feeding birds for at least 15 years, I've seen them use an impressive array of tricks and acrobatics to reach seed, suet, and even hummingbird nectar. This isn't necessarily a problem, especially if you enjoy feeding squirrels and watching their antics. But sometimes they can become a real nuisance, hogging the feeders, scaring away the birds, damaging your feeders by chewing the ports and lids, and even costing you extra money by emptying the feeders too fast. We've put together 5 tips to help keep the squirrels at bay if they are occupying a little too much territory at your feeders. Tip number 1, choosing an optimum location. One of the foundations to keeping squirrels out of your bird feeders is to keep them out of reach. Squirrels can leap nearly 10 feet between objects, so when you are considering where to place your feeders, try to keep them at least 10 feet away from anything a squirrel can jump from, including trees, fences, your deck railing, AC units, or your roof. They can also jump up to about 5 feet from the ground, so when hanging your feeders, make sure the bottom of the feeder hangs at least 6 feet from the ground, the higher the better. You can also try a window feeder. Window feeders can be great for excluding squirrels as long as you remember the 10-foot rule. I experimented with this a lot when I lived in a townhouse. At first, they were able to leap from my deck onto the feeder, which was pretty impressive. But after a little trial and error, I found a corner of the window that was out of leaping distance. A second-story window works great too. Tip number 2, use a baffle. In most cases, keeping your feeders out of leaping distance is only half the battle, since squirrels can also climb up the feeder poles. That's where a baffle comes in. Baffles are placed below a bird feeder and are intended to be a barrier between the squirrel and the feeder. Baffles are typically shaped like a cone or a torpedo. Cone-shaped baffles wrap around your bird feeder pole, under the feeders, with the wide end of the cone facing down. When the squirrel starts to climb up your pole, the baffle creates an obstacle that the squirrel can't get around. Make sure your cone is wide enough, at least 18 to 19 inches, so the squirrel will not be able to reach around it, because they will try. The wooden post beneath our baffle has been chewed and scratched in frustration, but they haven't made it past. Another popular baffle type is torpedo-shaped. These baffles are made to fit onto your bird feeder pole and have a smooth surface and a spring-loaded bounce that prevents squirrels from gaining enough balance and stability to climb over them. Make sure you position the baffle high enough up the pole so that the squirrels can't jump past it from the ground. Remember that 5-foot minimum rule. Tip number 3, choose a squirrel-proof bird feeder. You can buy feeders that are designed with squirrel defense in mind. Squirrel-proof feeders generally use 2 main tactics for thwarting squirrels: a weight-activated closing system or a cage system. Weight-activated feeders use the squirrel's body weight to trigger a closing mechanism that will block the food ports. When the door comes down over the ports, the squirrel will be unable to access the seed. Squirrels weigh more than your biggest backyard bird, so even several birds at once will not trigger the closing mechanism. Squirrel Buster is a popular brand that we like to use. Another type of feeder that attempts to keep squirrels from reaching the seed is a cage feeder. These feeders place a large metal cage around the feeder, and the openings of the cage are too small for the squirrel to squeeze through. This has worked great for me, but keep in mind that the cage also keeps out larger birds like cardinals, blue jays, and mourning doves. On the plus side, it creates a safe haven for the small birds like finches, chickadees, titmice, and sparrows. Tip number 4, use food squirrels don't like. While it's true that squirrels will eat almost anything, one thing they aren't fond of is chili peppers. Most mammals experience the sensation of heat and burning like we do when we eat hot sauce. However, birds don't. Many companies have used this fact to create suet and birdseed that incorporates hot pepper and pepper oils. If you can't use our first 3 tips or are still having trouble, Try purchasing hot pepper suet or birdseed coated in hot pepper oil. Once the squirrels get their first few bites and start to feel the burn, they aren't as likely to come back. Additionally, squirrels tend to be much less interested in Niger seed. Niger, also called thistle, is a small and thin, needle-like seed that finches love. In my experience, squirrels couldn't care less about this seed and leave Niger feeders alone. If this is your only feeder, you will get less bird varieties since many backyard birds don't like Niger seed either. But you can still attract finches, sparrows, juncos, and chickadees with it. Tip number 5, feed your squirrels in a separate location. Sometimes your best defense might be diversion. Try setting up a feeding area specifically for the squirrels so they won't have to spend time trying to break into your other feeders. A ground feeder is a good option for this, or an open platform within easy reach. Add some treats that you don't put in your other bird feeders like peanuts in the shell, cracked corn, or large nuts. They even make corncob feeders specifically for squirrels. So if you're having squirrel problems in your yard, hopefully these tips will help you create some squirrel-free spaces for the birds. Over the years, what I've found works best is a feeder pole out of jumping distance with a baffle on it. Personally, we like to strike a balance in our yard with both squirrel-proof feeders and squirrel-accessible feeders so everyone has a place to eat. Thanks for watching. If you are interested in any of the items mentioned in this video, check the description box below for links. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more backyard bird content.